At 18, I looked into my future and I saw that I could take over my father's churches. I could be the next guy, his successor, living the life that everybody wanted me to be. But I saw that if I didn't have my soul, if I didn't have my integrity, if I didn't have my truth, right, then what kind of success is that? All I heard was, do not do it. No, this was the same intuition that guided me to come to America. Every time I listen to this intuition, things go in a flow. When I don't, things don't work out. I knew, as much as I did not want to, I knew I had to listen. That's what threw me into a bit of a funk, because I felt like God, like, what the hell? You give me this vision and I have this opportunity, but everything in my soul, if I'm honest, is saying no. I threw my arms up and I said, God, I don't know what the hell you want from me in my life anymore.
I'm excited to have a conversation with you today because I know that you really, you like going anywhere. You have a great philosophical background. You have unbelievable experience in so many places in the world. I think it's always good to start out with the listeners understanding a bit of your story. And you utilize this story a lot in everything you build, all of your books, all of your communications. Dad is a minister out in Ghana and has over 300 churches, I believe, that he administers to. And you grew up.
Yeah, I was born in Ghana, West Africa. My father's from Ghana. My mother's Japanese. I grew up in London, lived in the US since I was 18. So more of my life now. And so you could say I'm part American, part British, live in Mexico part-time. And so I'm from everywhere and nowhere. And from a very young age, I never felt like I fit in. I never felt like I belonged. I never felt like I was not really accepted in Africa. I was not really accepted in the UK. I was not really accepted in Japan. I wasn't not accepted, but it wasn't like I felt a sense of being at home. I didn't look like anyone. And so that, I think, there was some pain there, as I never felt like I belonged. I didn't feel like I was at home anywhere. So that drove me from a very young age to start asking the questions of, like, who am I? And what am I, and where is home? Where do I belong? And the whole spiritual path of personal development and personal growth is about finding out who you are truly, beyond your conditioning, beyond your past, beyond what religion and society and parents and media and education system and social media and music and all of these things tell you who you are, because there's no shortage of people and advertising that will tell you who you are and who you should be. And most of us, we subscribe to those labels and conditioning, and it can be very seducing. And so for me, I started questioning from a very young age. My childhood was a bit unusual in that I think it was a blessing because I didn't know it was unusual. I thought it was like everybody else's. But as a young boy, I remember seeing, one of my first memories, a crippled woman crawling on the floor. She picks up the gravel, the sand that this man walks on, wipes it on her face, and stands up. And so week after week, I grew up seeing blind people see and deaf people hear. Real miracles, but I didn't know they were miracles. This was just like brushing my teeth, taking a shower, playing soccer, and miracles happening. And I didn't think anything that extraordinary about it, which was, I think, a blessing. And this crippled woman picks up the sand. This man walks on, stands up. Week after week, the same man would look at a person, let's say in a wheelchair, and say, why are you in this wheelchair? You're not sick, stand up. Or look at someone, would come in with crutches and say, hey, throw your crutches away. You're not sick. This man was my father. He built 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa. It was a very spiritual, mystical man. Went to India in the 60s, had an enlightenment experience, so a very unique character. 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa, hundreds of thousands of followers, a huge church in London, 4,000 to 5,000 people every Sunday. This is back in the 80s, pre-social media and Facebook and internet and Google. And so this is how I grew up. My mother was Buddhist. My dad was Christian. They came together and built this thing together. And so I started speaking in my father's churches when I was age 8. I was ordained as a minister, and I was given the mandate to be my father's successor when I was 14. But at that moment, I knew that was not my path. I knew that was not my trajectory and my destiny. But I think, like many of us, I was too afraid to speak my truth. My fear was, if I dare to actually be myself and speak my truth, I'm going to be outcast. I'm going to lose my father. I'm going to lose love. I'm going to be alone. And so I said nothing. And for 4 years, I tried to fit myself into a box to become who I thought I needed to be in order to get love and validation and approval, and became miserable in the process. And so at 18, that's when I would say the foundation of my life was set, because I felt my soul calling me to go to America. And I felt my soul, I wanted to go into the field of self-help at that young age, because I would sneak into my father's office. On his bookshelf were literally 1,000 books: personal growth, Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, Dennis Waitley, Osho, Krishnamurti, Eastern mystics. And I began devouring these books. And most of the modern day teachers and authors lived in Southern California, San Diego, Los Angeles. So for me as a young kid, this was the Mecca. And so I wanted to come to LA and meet many of these folks, study with some of these folks. I wanted to go into this field. I think sometimes what your soul guides you to do doesn't always make sense to your mind. What your soul guides you to do doesn't always make sense to your logic. What your soul guides you to do is often not convenient. But I really believe through my lived experience that if you listen to your soul, and if you follow your soul, and you're obedient to your soul, that deep knowing inside that we all have access to, you will always, and I have seen it proved, and I can share stories, you will always be guided in the right path, in the right direction, with the right people, doing the right thing. And I've been guided my whole life. And so at 18, I looked into my future, and I saw that I could take over my father's churches. I could be the next guy, his successor, living the life that everybody wanted me to be. But I saw that if I didn't have my soul, if I didn't have my integrity, if I didn't have my truth, right, then what kind of success is that? And that's when I knew I had to leave. That's when I knew there was no turning back. And I renounced everything, gave up everything, had the conversation with my father. And in a nutshell, we didn't speak for 2 years. He didn't speak to me for 2 years. And I left. I ended up winning a green card in the green card lottery. And that's what enabled me to come to the US. And $800, 2 suitcases, an 18-year-old kid following a dream, landed in Los Angeles, California, and went and found many of the teachers and mentors and authors I mentioned and I read about, some of whom we all know, studied with some of them, learned from some of them, and then went out on my own and ended up traveling. I ended up going to Israel, studying with some rabbis, Thailand, studying with some monks, ended up walking the Camino in northern Spain.
Yeah, that was one of my questions, because I definitely I want you to elaborate. Keep going on your point, but definitely go back to that, because I feel like there's some real depth in that walk, and a lot of people talk to me about it, and I'm interested in understanding your perspective.
Yeah, after the Camino, while I was in Camino, I met someone who said, go to India. And that's what took me to India. And that was kind of a culmination of this deep inner quest as a young man, a real profound quest. And when I was in India, something cracked open where I understood myself and I understood my purpose in life. And that's what gave me the courage to come back to America. And that's when 20 years ago, I started coaching people, before coaching was popular and before there was social media, and no idea what I was doing, just wanted to help people. And one person came, another person came, created my own way of working with people, called it uncoaching. And then people started coming from around the world, and built my reputation, and small groups, large groups, and 2 best-selling books. But the Camino was a very powerful part of my process. When I was walking, what led, I think it's important to share some context. I was in America about 2 years here. I didn't know anything about Hollywood. And so here I am, 19, 20 years old, 21 years old. And I find out about this Hollywood thing in LA, right? I didn't know. I just wanted to do self-help. And I started watching Oprah. And I saw, wow, she has a talk show. So I got this idea to create a talk show. I wanted to create like a new generation Oprah, merging spirituality, making it accessible to the mainstream, kind of like podcasts today, right?
Yeah.
But on television. And so I began literally pitching every single person in Hollywood. I mean, I tracked down Steven Spielberg. It's a whole nother story. I tracked down Richard Branson, David Geffen, the heads of William Morris, CAA, ICM, you name it, producers, 400 or 500 people, tracked them down, got rejected. But I got to a point where I found these managers. They managed Michael Jackson, Mariah Carey, Dolly Parton, Leonardo DiCaprio, J-Lo, Backstreet Boys, and more. And I thought, these guys are the guys. Somehow they were crazy enough to give me a meeting. And I remember being 21 years old. I go into this meeting, I pitched them with full passion. And these were the first guys that they looked at each other. They looked at me and they said, "You're going to be huge. And we're going to make a talk show around you." And I was shocked. And these were like mega managers. So they gave me a piece of paper. They said, "Take this contract, come back tomorrow. We're going to get to work." I went home very excited. I sat down, I meditated, and I heard no. All I heard was, "Do not do it." No, this was the same intuition that guided me to come to America. This was every time I listen to this intuition, things go in a flow. When I don't, things don't work out. So I knew, as much as I did not want to, I knew I had to listen. That's what threw me into a bit of a funk, because I felt like God, like, what the hell? You give me this vision and I have this opportunity, but everything in my soul, if I'm honest, is saying no. And I went into a bit of a funk and depression, and I threw my arms up and I said, "God, I don't know what the hell you want from me in my life anymore. I have reached the end of my ego's capacity to create and manifest my life. Like, I need some help. You talk to me, like, show me." That's when I heard "Walk the Camino." And even how I got to the Camino was powerful, because I had no money. I literally went homeless and broke pitching this TV show, right? I was so committed. I had nothing. I was sleeping on friends' couches, begging for food and begging for money from friends. You know, friends would give me sort of Ralph's coupons that I could go and go to Ralph's to just, because they felt for me, you know, and they were so inspired by my commitment, but I had nothing. And so I feel this calling, and I'm sitting with my best friend who was also broke. Okay. And my best friend was a very cool guy, a guy called Roger. We were sitting down in Culver City, and I'm telling him about my calling to do the Camino. The Camino, I need to walk the Camino. The Camino is a 900-kilometer trek through northern Spain. People like Dante, Chaucer, St. Francis of Assisi have walked this trek. It's on a vortex line. A vortex line is a line of energy. It said when a human being comes in contact with this vortex line of energy, they have them in Sedona and Machu Picchu, when is Jerusalem and Mount Shasta, you know, different parts of the world. It has an awakening effect on one's consciousness, a healing effect in one's nervous system. And so I heard about the Camino, 900 kilometers. It takes 4 to 6 weeks to walk. It's intense. Anything can happen. Shirley MacLaine wrote this book about it. I'm like, I need to do this. So I'm telling my best friend, I feel this calling. I feel this calling. And I'm going to do it. And I've said yes, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. All of a sudden, I see this guy. And this is how faith works. This is how, when you're following your soul, the universe supports you. The challenge is, many of us don't really listen to our soul. We all receive guidance. Do this, do that, call that person. We receive this deeper intuition, but because our intuition often doesn't fit the logical linear sense of our minds, it doesn't fit our sort of preconceived idea. We often question it. We doubt it. The mind gets in the way, wanting to question and understand and make sense of it, because this is the ego strategy of control. If I can understand it, then I can control it. And if I can be in control, then I won't be in the unknown. Then I won't get hurt. Then I'm going to be safe. It's a way to mitigate risk. And so we end up disconnecting ourselves from the deep knowing and intuitive capacity of our own souls. And then we block our own flow. And so I'm telling my friend about the Camino. This guy looks under the table, man, writes something, pushes a piece of paper across the table. I'm like, what's that? I look at the paper. It's a $5,000 check to me. Now, in 2001, that was a ton of money. Okay, at least for me.
Well, just hold on, just for clarity, this is not Roger that writes the $5,000 check. This is Roger, your friend, who you thought also was broke.
Was broke. We were both broke together.
Okay.
This guy wore the same shoes for 5 years. You know, holes in his socks. So Roger is now writing this check. I'm like, the hell's this? He goes, it's for you. I'm like, huh? Then he goes back, writes another check, pushes it across the table. Another $5,000. $10,000. $10,000 for me? You might as well have given me $1 million. Literally, it was so much money. You know, I was living off like $2 a day. And so I'm shocked. And I say to him, what is this? Is this a loan? What is this for? What is it? He goes, this is not a loan. He says, this is not even from me. said, what do you mean? He said, consider this a gift from the universe. He said, I work for a company, a tech company. This was when the tech boom was happening. Yeah. Stocks went bonkers, right? He said, I work for this tech company. I'm literally the lowest guy in the company, but my stock has gone crazy. I hate my job. I don't know why I go to work. I half-ass my job. And every day I pray to God, like, God, why am I here? And then when I heard you speaking about the Camino, I understood part of the reason I'm doing this job, because my stock has gone crazy, because I have almost $1 million worth of stock. And he said, for doing nothing. And he said, I understand that really the only reason God has given me this opportunity is to be able to support people like you. Because I know that if you walk the Camino, you will transform and your life will be benefited and you will impact millions of people in your lifetime. So this is not a gift from me. I'm just a delivery person delivering you this money. It's yours. You don't owe me anything. Go walk the Camino. And that's how it started. And that's why I believe I invite everyone, when you feel that calling, what I had to learn to do was to not question my intuition. So it's like, if your intuition says turn left, turn left. You don't have to know why in order to follow it. You don't even have to know where you're going in order to get to exactly where you need to be. But if you follow your guidance, if you follow your intuition, you will be guided in the right place at the right time with the right people in the right way. Follow the guidance. To me, that's the key. And so I ended up walking the Camino. And the Camino, back then, especially 2001, we didn't have these crazy smartphones and Google Maps. And so the whole point of the Camino is you don't even take a physical map. You just walk in old school style. Old school style is you walk first day straight up from the south of France into the Pyrenees, straight down into the Pyrenees, into a black forest, literally like out of Blair Witch Project. So here I am walking by myself, thinking I'm about to get killed by ghosts and things. And the whole point is it's a walk and a journey of trust. It's like life, where the only thing to guide you is every now and again you will see the yellow arrows. So the whole point of the Camino is to follow the yellow arrows. And you're walking for miles, you see nothing, and then you're wondering, am I on the right track? Did I take a wrong turn? And then there's a yellow arrow. And so you're constantly looking for the clues. And it's like kind of like a metaphor for life, follow the yellow arrows. And so took me 28 days of following the yellow arrows and meditating and walking and just communing with nature, just trying to get in touch with my soul, listen to my soul, and listen to my inner guidance. And that was, I could tell more stories of the Camino.
No, that's great. What's great about that is I think there's a couple of things that I heard that are really powerful. Number one is we are the company we keep. So you can have all the ideas in the world, but when you share them with people, that when you're actually putting your energy out into the universe and you're sharing your ideas and you're sharing that path that you were sharing, you were passionate about whatever it was you were doing, you were getting led in the right direction eventually, even if it was moving you in different directions along the way, you were finding that path along the way. And it was partly because you were sitting in front of the right person. You didn't even know it. Yeah. And then you get out there and you get this metaphor for life.
Sometimes the person you think is going to help you is not the person. Sometimes life, God, whatever you believe, right? God will use the most unusual means. Life can use whatever means necessary to unfold your destiny. Because to me, the dream that you have doesn't belong to you. It belongs to life. Life chose you to be the person to fulfill that dream. And if life chose you, then I believe that life knows how to fulfill itself. Many times we have all of these preconceived ideas, how it's going to happen, who's going to help us. But the truth is, we end up putting our faith in humans rather than our faith in life, in the innate divine intelligence. And so Roger was the last person. When I say last, I mean that if anything, I thought he would ask me for money, and I didn't have money. We were broke together, we would so hang out. And so Roger was the last person, I thought, and that was like God saying, you see, don't put it limitations on life. You just don't know. And so I think we have to be open and available to life. Life knows what to do. Life knows how to do it.
Now the energy, the energy from the Camino led you to India, where I believe you had a near-death experience that also led you, and potentially, or maybe there's some story that happened in India that was something that was prolific to you that allowed you to see the world.
Yeah, I met a man.
Okay.
I met a very special guy. And it's amazing you talk about associations. Sometimes strangers can touch you in ways, that like I met a guy who I've never seen ever again, but I think of him every day. And many times we think to ourselves, can I make a difference? Can I make a difference in people's lives? And I just want people to know, just by you showing up every day, maybe it's a smile, maybe it's a kindness, maybe it's a phone call, maybe it's a text, maybe it's a helping someone with the groceries, maybe it's a conversation that you take to counsel someone. You might not think you're making a difference, but you are. And I had a conversation with a guy in the Camino that he doesn't know he's still impacting my life. 20 years later, he is in my thoughts and heart almost daily, and the impact he had on my life. Because I met this guy. He's the one that said, go to India. I met this guy. I was hell-bent on walking the Camino myself. Okay, I'm like, I'm going to walk myself. I'm going to take minimal backpack. I'm going to be like enlightened and have no attachments, show how spiritual I am. And I met this guy. I was walking myself for like 18 days. And I met this guy. I walked into this monastery where we were going to sleep on the floor, basically. And this guy was, drinking and eating and laughing. I'm like, oh, I just want to be quiet. I want to be meditating. And this guy was going to stop. This is the type of guy who would say all the shit that we were all thinking, but nobody would say.
Yeah.
And I wanted to avoid him, but he wouldn't let me be by myself. So he kept harassing me. And he said, tomorrow, you and I are walking together. I'm like, hell no. He's like, hell yes. And he wouldn't leave me alone. And so I woke up early that next morning to try to escape. And there he was with his backpack waiting. And so his name was Francisco. And we began walking together. And this was one of the hardest treks of the Camino, where you go straight up, very high elevation. And every 20 minutes, he would stop. He had this huge backpack, right? I had this tiny backpack. He had a backpack that was massive, almost as big as, half my size, full of stuff. And he kept stopping every 20 minutes, and he would talk to somebody. Hey, 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 Dave, hey, Scott, hey, Susie. And he would talk to you, and he would get to know you. And then he would take something out of his backpack and give you a gift. And you'd be very touched. And then we'd stop another 20 minutes, and the whole thing would, after about 5 of these stops, I looked at him and I said, Francisco, what the hell are we doing? We're never going to make it to the end of the day. Come on, like, we need to go. You keep stopping. Like, let's get to the end. And he laughed and he said, there is no end. The journey is the destination. And then we started talking a bit. We sat down and I said, how many times have you, like I said to him, why the hell do you have a backpack that's so big? The whole point of the Camino is to let go of your attachments. And he said, I've walked the Camino 7 times. It's like, whoa, 7? He goes, this is my 8th time walking. But this time, I'm not walking for myself. I'm walking for everybody else. I'm here to be of service to those on the Camino. I said, okay. And he said, yes, my backpack is big. But he said to me, Kute, nothing in my backpack is for me. My intention by the end of the Camino is to make sure that everything in this backpack is given away and that this backpack is empty. And I understood what he was telling me. It's like, wow, it's just like life, a heart, life, giving away. And I understood what he was saying. And I understood, like, wow, the whole purpose of the journey of life is to give, is to give. And so many of us, we hold on to things, but here he was intent on giving and giving. And then we got to the end of that day and he hands me a book, a gift wrapped book that was clearly gift wrapped before, right? And he says, I know we're going to part ways now, but open this gift on the last day of the Camino. I said, okay. I left the next day and, you know, he told me, go to India, go here, do this. And the next day I was walking, I sat down by a tree exhausted. I saw the gift and could I wait? I couldn't wait. I'm like, no, I have to open this gift. So I opened this gift. See, my mother is Japanese. And I had told him about, you know, I'm 21 years old. My mother was kind of worried about her son in this middle of nowhere with no communication, right? And I opened this gift, unwrap it. It is a book, detailed sort of historical, in-depth explanation about the Camino in Japanese. And I realized that he was giving me a gift for my mother. And how the hell did he know that he was going to meet someone whose mother was Japanese? And he gift wrapped it. You know, I'm like, wow. And that was a sign of the universe, you know, that what you need will be there when you need it along the journey. And many times we walk in life and we face darkness or dark moments and dark times. And it's easy in those dark times to want to give up, to question life, to question God, to question oneself, to question, am I on the right path? But I think that the darkness that we face, those challenging moments, are not sent to break us. They're sent for us to access a deeper dimension of our potential. The dark moments and those dark times are not sent to destroy you. They're sent to force us to go inside, to connect to the light of our being, to reveal the light of who and what we truly are. And so the Camino was very, very powerful for me. And that's what took me to India. And when I was in India, I had several experiences in India, to be honest. But one of those, actually, a few of those, was when I almost died. I had a few situations where I almost died. One of them was when I was walking in the Himalayas. And long story short, I walked for about 8 hours, and it was an 8-hour walk of death, where I was vomiting and diarrheaing and dizzy and fainting and literally crawling up this mountain, but being very prideful. I'm like, I'm making it to the top of the mountain, even if I die. And I began hallucinating, and I was sure I was dying. I thought I'd caught some disease and this was it. And I was in so much pain, and I'm diarrheaing every 2 minutes and vomiting and just crawling. And I'm seeing these sort of yogi sadhu guys running up the mountain, and I'm crawling, and I'm having visions of my mom and visions of the regrets in my life and saying sorry and saying goodbye. And I made it to the end, the top of the Himalayas, made it to a tent. And I was like, okay, this is it. And I closed my eyes, pretty sure I was going to die. And I woke up the next morning. I'm like, oh, I'm awake. Is this what heaven looks like? It looks the same. And then managed to catch one of the guys, the Sherpas going down, catch a ride on a donkey, and got down the mountain, made it down, got back in a taxi, made it home. About an hour of leaving the Himalayas, I felt better. And I'm like, what the hell? And I speak to the taxi guy. He goes, oh, you just had altitude sickness. It's like, oh my God, that was it. But literally, I felt like I was dying, you know. And I think for me, death is a profound teacher, because death gets you in touch with the reality and the sacredness and the preciousness of life. The truth is, we're all going to die. You will die. You're going to die. None of us know when that moment will happen. None of us know when that moment will come. And I hope we all live a long life. But Jesus died, Buddha died, Gandhi died, Mother Teresa died, the great yogis in India died, Mandela died, Muhammad Ali died, Bruce Lee died. Like, if they died, we're going to die. I know there's a lot of biohacking things, and let's live forever. We're going to freaking die, bro. We're going to die. Dave Asprey is going to die. Maybe we extend our life by 50, 60 years, but it's just this physical body will die. The true essence of what we are as soul is never born, never dies. It's an eternal stream of energy and consciousness that this physical body costume is just an appearance on. It's just a temporary vehicle. And so I think we're often so afraid of death because we don't know who we are. We're so afraid of death because we believe that we are just this limited physical body. But is this what we are? I think that we're so much more. And so being in India and facing death woke me up to a deeper reality of what I am. And so I would invite people to just meditate on your death, feel your death, hold it close, don't avoid it. We live in a kind of anesthetized culture that we want to, all these comforts, and we don't want to think about death. COVID kind of made us think about death. And the truth is, we will die. The sooner you can accept that, the sooner you can be free. The sooner you can be freed up to start living. Because if you embrace death, it focuses you on what's important. It focuses you on what's real. If death came right now, would you be ready? If death came right now, what's unsaid? What regrets would you have? What's ungiven? What's unforgiven? What would you want more of? And how would you need to live your life so that if death came, you could be ready? Because when we die, and I hope all of us live a long life, but when we die, we can't go to God or whatever you believe and say, hey, God, can I get a refund on those 2 years I wasted in that job that I hated? Can I get a refund on those 7 years I wasted in that relationship that I deep down knew wasn't right, but I was too afraid to do something about because I was afraid of what people would say? There's no refunds. And so talk about high performance life, high performance living. How would you need to live your life in such a way that if death came, you would have no regrets? Because the people that died today, most of them had no idea they were going. The people in 9/11, the tsunamis, they had no idea. One day they left one morning, said goodbye to their loved ones, gone. So how would you need to live? To me, every second of life is precious. So feel your death, embrace it, breathe it, make it your friend, and use death as not as a morbid thing, but as a motivation to live fully, to live fiercely with everything you've got, to love fully, to share your gifts with the world. Because so often we hold back our love, and we hold back our gifts because we think we have time. We don't. Tomorrow is not a right. Tomorrow is just a privilege. We don't have time. Stop waiting for some special date to celebrate. We wait for that special occasion to wear that dress or that outfit for a special occasion that never comes. When in fact, this moment right here, your life exactly as it is the special occasion. And so for me, being in India, dying several times in the Himalayas, a couple of car accidents, made me realize, whoa, any second, I could be gone. Very humbling for me.
Which is really the true freedom. And at the end of the day, my question that I wrote down that we didn't even have to get to was, how does the near-death experience and embracing death actually equal freedom? And so the beauty in that is it's such a powerful statement. And I've heard one of my favorite people to listen to is a guy named Father Mike Schmitz out of I think it's Minnesota, and he did the Bible in the Year podcast. He does a lot of different things, but he talks about eulogy virtues. And he says, and I've delivered 4 eulogies. I've talked about it on this show before, but I've never delivered a eulogy for the people that I love or the people that other people loved where I did not talk about the most important things that mattered to them: love, impact, their faith, their energy, who they helped, how they helped them. It wasn't about their careers, their money, their cars, all the things that you talked about. Embracing death allows us to really see how fragile it can be, and that there is time if we just take it now. And that's such a great point. And I absolutely love that. Talk to me about surrender. So, I know the newest book, The Magic of Surrender, Finding the Courage to Let Go, is a special message. And what I love is that when you write a book, by the time the book comes out, you're already ready for the next one. Like the ideas of growth continue to brew inside of us. And I know that that's probably what was happening as you have gone on to have multiple best-selling books. But talk to me about The Magic of Surrender.
Well, this was not the book I wanted to write. Let's put it that way. This was not the book I thought I was going to write or plan to write. I had my own agenda of the book I wanted to write.
The mind versus the soul. The mind versus the soul again, right?
The book I thought would be a bestseller. The book I thought the publishers would want. The book I thought, and none of the ideas that I wrote were authentic. As in, I couldn't look you in the eyes and say, yeah, this is the book. Yeah, maybe one day there'll be good books, but none of those felt like this is it, right? Like a true calling. But the only word I saw was the word surrender. I wrote on a whiteboard all these ideas, and the only word I saw was surrender. And I knew, oh shit, that's the book. and I saw that this was the book that was seeking to be written. And this book had a soul of its own. And so I had to surrender to the book about surrender. And when that happened, magic flowed. And so I think in our culture today, we have this idea or this misconception that surrender is weak, that surrender is passive, that surrender is giving up, that surrender is waving the white flag, that surrender is being a doormat, being left behind, selling everything, moving to the Himalayas. That surrender means you won't manifest your goals, dreams, and desires. You're going to get less in life. I'm actually thinking, no, if you truly surrendered, what if you didn't get less, but you got more? What if you didn't get less, but it was better than you could have planned and imagined with the limitation of your human mind, your personal power? And so I really feel as though surrender is the most powerful thing that we can do. That surrender is the real secret to manifestation. That surrender is the password to freedom. That if you really look at the great ones, the truly great ones, Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Mandela, Martin Luther King, Muhammad Ali, Bruce Lee, Elon Musk in his own business way. Like at some point, all of these folks had to surrender themselves, and they had to surrender. Like look at Gandhi, who was a lawyer going down a path of a very successful lawyer, yet something else called him. What if he didn't surrender to that deeper calling? We wouldn't have Gandhi today. The world would be different. And so I think all of these people had to surrender to that deeper calling, that deeper purpose, that deeper nudging, to their deeper soul's truth. In that surrender, they transcended their human limitations. And in transcending those human limitations, they tapped into another dimension of potential. And that's when life began to use them. And so I like to say that if you surrender, life will use you. Life will create through you. Life will manifest through you in ways that you cannot even imagine. It's bigger than what you can imagine. And so surrender is a letting go of control, or I should say the illusion that we are in control. Surrender is when you stop trying to force and manipulate life to fit your limited idea of how you think it should be and how you think it shouldn't be, so that you can be available and open, and you take the limitations off of life. And in that availability and openness, you allow life to show you. You allow life to guide you. You allow God to guide you. You allow your soul to guide you. And that's, I think, when the magic happens. The old paradigm of personal growth is all about, is the ego-based model for living life. What do I want? What do I want? What do I want? No, you got to know what you want. I'm not saying it's not helpful to know what you want. The challenge is, many times we achieve certain goals only to realize that upon achieving it, what we thought we wanted was not what we really wanted. It was just what we thought we wanted based on who we thought we were. And many times goals can be projections of unmet needs from childhood. So if we're not in touch with who we are, then what we think we want is going to be an illusion. You get the car, you get the house, you get the Lamborghini, you get the whatever. It's like, this is not what I really wanted. I was just trying to prove that I was worthy enough to my dad. That's not truly what I wanted. And so for me, the question isn't simply, what do I want? The question in surrender is a bigger question. The question becomes, what is it that life is seeking to manifest through me? What is it that God is seeking to manifest through me? What is it that the universe is seeking to express through me? and to listen and attune and become obedient to that, to catch that vision so that you can make room within yourself for this innate impulse, this divine impulse to express through you. And I think when we truly do that, then you can align your personality and your ego with the deeper impulse of life. And then you commit. It doesn't mean you sit there and do nothing. It means you commit to what's true. Then you go into action, giving 100% without being attached to the outcome. And I think that's the key of surrender, where you commit fully, where you're not attached to the outcome. And that's when you're available, and that's when you're open to life showing you.
Yeah, I listened to an interview the other day with Arthur Brooks, who is the happiness doctor at Harvard University, and he wrote From Strength to Strength. And he just recently released a book with Oprah Winfrey, bringing Oprah back into the conversation from our earlier reference. But he talked about every year now, he actually creates a list of the things that he's attached to and physically crosses them out, and down to his political beliefs. He said, you know, he found that he had political beliefs that were so drawn to, you know, one thing or another that he wrote them down and he just crossed them out. And by detaching himself from them, there's a freedom that comes over one. And I also think, to your point, Roger's another example, that the Camino and the gentleman that you met on the Camino, you know, this is a frequency that if you're not attuned to it, if you're shut down and attached to the road you're on only and the result you're on only, what happens? We miss all those opportunities that you otherwise, you know, luckily they were loud enough and right in your face that you were seeing them as a young man. But today you're teaching people, if I understand this correctly, to open that frequency, to be more open to the path that you're meant to be on, not the path that you think that you think you've laid out for yourself.
Exactly.
What is your, you know, what are you surrendering to? So as you wrote this book and you wrote Surrender on that board and you started to develop the things
it's been a constant, like, look, when you write a book about surrender, my next book is going to be How to Be a Billionaire. Because when you write a book about surrender, let me tell you, shit hits, man. And it's like life puts you through, at least put me through a process of really understanding from the inside the true essence of surrender in a very internal, the nuances and the layers and the dimensions of surrender in a really profound way. The moment I started writing the book, COVID hit. And I was like, I don't want to say COVID hit because of me, but COVID hit right when I started writing the book. And that was profound, because here I was traveling the world 200 days a year and no events, boom, everything shut down, bam, my business, boom, like everyone. But it was like, holy moly. And so that was a profound surrender. Next moment, I was living in LA for 20 years. I had a house in Phoenix, never thought I would leave LA. I'd go to Phoenix every month just for a few days to do some creative writing and filming. I was guided, much against my wish, to leave LA. I'm like, wow, that was a death. I was crying for months, just an internal grieving, like, you know, like I can't leave LA. I am LA, you know? And so ended up getting rid of my office, getting rid of my apartment in LA, moving to my home in Phoenix. Phoenix is a different world. I love it, but I never thought I'd be living there. Now I'm living in Phoenix, going through a shedding and a letting go. Was in a relationship with a woman who I was sure was the one. You know how the story goes. Turned out not to be the one, and we broke up. And it's like, I couldn't believe that sometimes when something seems, how something can seem so but not be, and how something can seem not to be but be so, is so humbling. And I think life humbles us, you know. Well, I was so sure something was, but it wasn't. And so that was a profound surrendering, where I just got to the point where I said to God, I don't know anything anymore. Like, I don't know anything, because here I am in this relationship with this woman thinking this is exactly the way I thought I was going to kind of meet somebody. And it's not. What the hell do I know? I know nothing. And I think coming to the point where we can say we know nothing, I realized, is the beginning. That's the beginning of the magic. That's when you've reached your ego's, the end of your ego's capacity to manifest and navigate your life. Ego said to be easing God out as an acronym. And so when we're in ego, we're like in control and trying to control everything, and we end up limiting life. And so I was so humbled, man. I'm like, I don't know anything. I thought I knew. I don't know shit about anything. And I just threw my hands up and I said, show me. I've written this book about surrender, but I don't know. And that's when magic happened. I ended up, this was still in 2020. End of 2020, going to Miami, came back, beginning of 2021, sell your house in Phoenix. Never thought I was going to sell this magical little gem of a house in Phoenix. Sell the house in Phoenix. Wow, okay. Sell my house in Phoenix. Sold before it got onto the market. Made a crazy profit. Ended up moving to Miami. I'm like, I had no plan to move to Miami. All of a sudden, I'm now living in Miami, February 2021. Thinking now I'm going to be in Miami for the next 20 years, like I was in LA for the last 20 years.
Perfect time, by the way. The only place that was really fully open at the time in the whole
I loved
country.
It. No fear. Like, let
Right.
me live it. Let me live in Miami. And I'm in Miami, wondering why I'm in Miami. I'm not sure. Thinking I know why I'm in Miami. Long story short, to condense the story, the end of 2021 was doing an event in Egypt. The same voice said, go to Brazil. The hell am I going to go to Brazil? Last time I was in Brazil, I did an event. It's kind of in COVID times. There's no events happening, at least not big ones. What? Surrender, go. Long story short, within 5 days of being in Brazil, I met my wife in the completely random opposite way that I didn't think I was going to meet my wife. And it just goes to show how something you think is isn't, how sometimes something you think isn't is. But when we're so wrapped in looking at life from a certain lens, we can't see what is right in front of us that is meant to be. And so for me, surrender is living with humility, is living with openness. And so I was put through so many surrenders, ended up meeting my wife, ended up going through an amazing process, ended up moving back to LA a year later, ended up getting married, ended up having a baby, all within 18 months. Is like, look, the surrender shit works, man. Surrender works. Surrender is the most powerful thing I believe that we can do. If you want to live a good life, you got to make it happen. You want to live a truly, 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 truly great life beyond your wildest dreams, surrender. And that's when life will manifest through you and magic will happen in ways that you could not have planned. If we all look at the best things in your life that have happened, most of it we didn't plan. Like very few of us plan, like, I'm going to go to Starbucks, meet my soulmate. It just happened in the process of living life. So if the best things we didn't plan, why not surrender from the beginning? Most of us, we surrender when shit hits the fan and we have no alternative and we're dying, hanging off a cliff, like, okay, I surrender, God. It's like, why not live that way from the beginning? Living surrender. Like, I'm guarantee you, Mandela could not have planned his life. Sat down in a goal-setting seminar saying, yeah, well, I'm going to spend 27 years in prison. I'm like, that's not a life you can plan. It was bigger than him.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the possibility that I want people to understand about surrender. People might still be thinking about, is it really surrender? I don't know. Everyone listening, if you think about your most beautiful sexual experience, let's take it out of the realm of the spiritual for a moment. Just a human. Think of your greatest. Doesn't have to be your greatest, because there's really, well, for the most part, I don't want to say there's no bad sexual experiences, but
for a man, they're all great.
For a man, they're
all great. Let's be honest.
Just to be nuanced, there's never a bad one. There's degrees of good.
Yeah.
But if you think of a beautiful sexual experience with your lover. Like you were there, the energy exchange, you were together, you were flowing, you were in the flow. What made it beautiful? What made it ecstatic?
It's connection.
Was it because you came to the sexual encounter with a laptop full of a business plan? Okay, honey, for the next 44 minutes of the sexual encounter, I have this sexual encounter completely scripted, planned, and mapped out. Don't worry, we have it planned out. Minute one, do this. Minute two, kiss me 4 times. Minute set. There was no plan. And what made it beautiful is the connection. What made it beautiful was you let go. It was because you surrendered. You didn't know what was going to happen. You were open to the energy. You were open to the flow. That is the magic of surrender. And why do we love sex so much when it's good? Because we surrendered and we let go when the energy was flowing. So if lovemaking is like that, why not living life?
Yeah, it's really a true presence. You know, I think I've been married 21 years, and
Wow.
I won't go into the intimate part of our life, but I will say that I learned pretty early on that there was a difference between the act and connection. And what I needed and what we needed was to have that connection. So we would often, we call it ROM weekends, where we rekindle our marriage. Weekend, we have to separate from the world we're in to truly be present. And we built out a model that we apply by, and it's super open. There's no rules, no plan, no 42-page anything, but it definitely creates the environment that allows us to separate and to surrender, to your point. And I think we could talk about this all day, and I want to be mindful of our time. I know we have a lot of we both have schedules to abide by, but Kute, I am so grateful for the time. The magic of surrender. I have the book right here. I would say that if you're only grabbing the book, you're only grabbing a small piece of the opportunity to learn, to grow, to tap into the opportunity of really understanding all the experiences that you've put out there, from your YouTube channel to all the different Instagram posts to everything that you're doing. I think is really, really fun. I have the chance to get to know somebody before I even have them on the show, just by studying them. And it's been a true honor and a real experience. So tell everybody how to connect with you so that our listeners can have the right connection, and they can truly learn from you in the future.
Yeah, I would say a couple of ways. Definitely get the book, The Magic of Surrender. I know this is dropping right around the end of November, but depending on people listen to this, if it's the end of November 2023, I would say short notice, but I'm doing my most transformational event of the year, December the 5th through the 16th. It's called Boundless Bliss, the Bali Breakthrough Experience. It's 12 days, an immersion, experiential seminar training without walls, where I take you to Bali, Indonesia, and take you through a profound, deep dive, transformational process of healing. And it's life-changing, truly life-changing. I've done this event for the last 11 years. I've done 21 of these events. This December is special because it's my final one, the last one I will ever do in Bali. And we have about 18 people maximum, so it's super intimate, but we dive deep, and it's truly, 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 truly life-changing. And so I would say, if you're someone, if you've been inspired by the conversation and the timing's right, if you're someone, you feel that you've been put on the planet for a purpose that is bigger than yourself, you feel ready for your next level, you feel ready to heal, to clear the blocks that have been stopping you from manifesting that next level of your greatness, you feel ready to connect with your voice and your power and share your gifts with the world, you can apply to attend the event. We have a couple of spots left as of the time of this interview. You can go to www.boundlessblissbali.com. That's boundlessblissbali.com, and find out about it. It's December the 5th to the 16th. If you listen to this after December, then you can go to my website, Kute, Kute, KuteBlackson.com, enter your name and your email to receive a free 3-part video training series on how to find your purpose. And also go to the schedule tab and find out about some of my breakthrough events and seminars coming up in 2024.
Kute Blackson, great to have you on the show. It's awesome to be a part of this experience, and we will make sure all of that's in the show notes as well. So we look forward to connecting the dots and being a part of someone else's universe out there. So thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you liked it, there's more where this one came from. Click here and enjoy some more.